Welcome to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. My name is Will Frantz, and I'm here to help you improve your training so you can have more fun out on the trails. Today I want to talk about how you might know if you're training hard enough or even too hard, especially when in terms of strength training or speed work. And this comes from a couple questions from a variety of people I've gotten in the past couple weeks with how you should feel after a strength workout. And I feel like this is a really common thing. I've gotten this not just from trail runners, but also people I coach in person. And we often have this idea that you should feel really sore or kind of wrecked the next day after your strength work. And it's just not the case. There's a few reasons why. It's actually a really good sign that you've gone too hard or that you're overtraining. There's this long idea for a very long time where you would push yourself super hard in the gym, like we do the classic leg day, where you would do squats and you would do deadlifts and then you would do leg press and then Bulgarian split squats and then finish out in the leg extension, the ham curl machine, and some calf raises. And then by the end of it, you can barely walk out of the gym. It is a struggle to sit down on the toilet the next day, and it just ruins you for multiple days at a time. And it is not necessary to see improvements. And in fact, if you go that route, you're probably actually going to make less progress, especially over time. Now, if we're going to try to target a difficulty when it comes to something like strength training, you should know you worked out the day before is a really good signal. I did some chest stuff today. I'm not sore yet. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm probably going to notice it right about here in my upper pec. But that's about it. It's not going to impede my movements. I'm not going to struggle to reach things out of a cabinet. I'm absolutely not going to have problems when coaching people and moving weights around and doing all of that stuff. And yet, week after week, I've been adding some weight to my bench press and seeing strength improvements. So it is not a requirement to feel just ruined the next day in order to see progress. The best indicator we have for if you're getting stronger in the gym is if you're getting stronger in the gym. If you can add a little bit of weight week to week or session to session, or whatever it may be, or we can add an extra rep or two here or there, you are seeing progress. That is an indicator that you are getting stronger and that things are working. Even if you're just getting more comfortable with a movement pattern, and that is the reason you're getting stronger, that is still progress. We're just looking to move a little more weight, from a total volume perspective, week after week. And eventually you'll hit a plateau. You're not going to be on this constant upward trajectory, or else the best powerlifters in the world would be squatting a house. But for most of us, we're just looking to have some general upward trajectory. Just like with running, you're not going to get faster week after week after week after week, but you should get generally faster over time. And that is what we are looking for in the gym. Now, if we're going to do some movement, let's talk an overhead press because it's in frame. If I am pressing a weight and I can move it at this speed pretty consistently, and then at some point, it starts to slow down a little bit, and then it starts to slow down even more. Right about here is probably a good sign in session that I am hitting a point of adaptation, and then at some point my body is going to deviate sideways, so I try to get underneath the weight and then straighten out, and that's a sign that I've gone too far because my form is broken down. And if I'm targeting a set of 10, that probably means the first 6 are going to be kind of easy, and then the next 4 are going to be kind of challenging, and those last 2 are going to be moving pretty slowly, but I'll be maintaining good form. So that is a pretty decent target. If you've hit that significant slowdown point in a movement, then you have probably hit a pretty decent target for the weight you're trying to challenge. If we're talking about building muscle mass or hypertrophy, anything in the 5 to 30 rep range will do that job. Now, if we're working on full body low rep strength adaptations. Now, this is a conversation I had today, so I'm going to kind of clarify what that means. If you were doing deadlifts, picking weight up off the ground, then if we're targeting like 10 reps, we're probably trying to build some level of muscle mass in our posterior chain, like our glutes and our hamstrings. If we were doing really heavy reps for like 1 to 4, you are probably not going to move that weight enough times to build a bunch of muscle mass, but it will help you get really strong. Because if you put something in the like 90% of your maximum lift on the ground and pull it off the ground without getting hurt, then your entire body has to work as a unit, and your nervous system gets better at talking to your whole body and moving it as a unit. It's one of the big reasons that these like low weight lifts do belong at some point in your training. It's not necessarily a thing you should pair with a bunch of speed work or a bunch of high volume unless you know how to do that well. But that's one of the reasons they have such value, is because moving a bunch of weight around teaches more of your muscles to work together in concert and be really helpful, right? So if we are in this like 1 to 4 rep range, you probably are not going to have that slow down point, because the first rep is already going to be slow. This is where you kind of have to know yourself and trust your programming and use some past history to figure it out and just make sure that things are moving well. But if we are targeting a little more in the standard like 6 to 12 range, if you hit a decent slow down point and you haven't changed form yet, you are probably in a good range for adaptation. Now, you should not feel wrecked the next day, because one of the big things that leads to progress is not missing training sessions. So if you lifted so hard that you have to take off your next lifting session, then you have negatively affected your training cycle. If you have lifted so hard that you have to take off your next run, you have also negatively affected your training cycle. We should be slowly adding weight and difficulty and maybe some reps week after week or session after session or month after month, but it shouldn't be negatively affecting your training. You might feel it the next day, but you shouldn't feel wrecked. And this is a really important distinction because I think we just lose that a lot of the time. Now, this is also true for like speed work or difficult runs. If you pushed it so hard in a speed workout that you have to take a day or two off, then we have overshot. You should be able to recover. We should be able to come back. You should be able to wake up the next day and move around and do your daily activities without doing the getting out of the chair, right? Like that is a sign that something is overstretched. And it's not the sign that like you have classic overtraining or that you're injured or whatever, but we should be able to continue to go throughout our day and not miss training sessions. That is the big thing, because the primary indicator of success in a training cycle is that we're able to maintain our volume. And yes, you will miss a session here and there, due to a little niggle or injury or tweak or whatever. You will miss a session due to your kid and dog getting sick on the same day and having to run to both the vet and the doctor or whatever. But for the most part, we shouldn't be missing training sessions, and we definitely shouldn't be missing training sessions because we went too hard in the session prior. If you were having to take an extra recovery day week after week, if you were having to pull back on your pace during speed workouts because you're just so sore from how hard you went in the gym or how hard you went on your last workout, if you were having to cut miles off of your long run because of how hard you went on your last workout, we went too hard. We can get an adaptation from a pretty wide range of paces, speeds, efforts, all of these things. If we were this is one of the reasons why when I have people do VO2 max work, it is not try to be dead at the end of each 3-minute interval. If we're going for the standard 5 by 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off, that you'll see in Coop's book or whatever, it's a pretty standard workout across the board. You are not trying to just be toasted at the end of each 3-minute interval. A good marker would be a really hard mile pace. That's a good way to set a base for what a VO2 workout could be. Like go run a fast mile, whatever that may be for you, and then target that pace or a little faster. And if you're doing this on trails, it's not going to be pace, it's going to be effort, and that's okay. Like note what that effort feels like during that mile, but target that effort for 3 minutes. And then by the time you have collected 5 of them, you have done a bunch of work. You will spend a ton of time in that VO2 max space. You will be creating a lot of adaptation for that piece of your physiology, but you will not be pushing so hard that we're risking injury or risking like having to take off later training sessions. Let's say I run a mile in like 7 minutes. If I run a like 6 to 7 minute pace for 3 minutes, I can absolutely hold that for 3 minutes. It will be difficult. I will want to stop, but I could keep going. And that's a pretty good target for VO2 work that is not going to ruin me for the rest of the week. Whereas if I just try to like wreck myself for 3 minutes and then barely hold on by the end, it is a pretty high likelihood that 2 things are going to happen. One of 2, probably both. I am going to overwork, and it's very likely that I'm going to like have to miss a session or pull back on a later thing, or I'm going to get injured because I'm going to be pushing so hard that my form kind of falls apart. And then by the end of it, instead of like driving back with my glutes, I'm like pushing with nothing but my calves. My like bracing and my core structure is completely gone away, and I'm in my low back. All of these things that we really don't want to have happen are probably happening if I just try to toast myself in and rep out of these interval sessions. So we should be maintaining a pace that creates the stimulus we're looking for, but doesn't ruin you for your later training sessions. I know this was a short one. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments or shoot me a message. I'm happy to answer it. I'm going to try to do some more of these shorter ones, and I'm going to be back on here with I had a question the other day of how professional athletes recover after a big injury, talking about torn Achilles or whatever, and it'd be good to address that a little bit with some bullet points. So come back with that later this week. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions, please shoot them my way, and I'll answer them as best as I can. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. Honestly, I'm still surprised and honored that anybody wants to hear what I have to say, so thank you. To be clear, not a doctor, nor a registered dietitian, or any other kind of medical professional. I'm a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and a running coach, and I have a passion for training trail runners. You should always speak with a qualified medical professional before making any changes to your training or nutrition program. If you enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, please take a second to leave a rating or review. I'd really appreciate it. Or you could just share it with someone for whom you think it might be helpful. I make these kinds of things in order to provide more quality, free resources to people, so the more people who hear it, the better. If you want more of this information, please head to the Trail and Ultra Running Training group on Facebook, where we discuss all aspects of training so you can have more fun doing the sport that you love. Thank you again for listening.